Augustine Port Waterway and Beach District for December 17th, 2024. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would any commissioners like to deliver an invocation? Looking at Tom.
Okay. Dear Lord, we ask your blessing on this meeting and fill all of our hearts with the desire and the ability to create a safer waterway in St. Augustine. And just bless us now as we deliberate our actions. In your name, amen.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Rivers?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Bender?
Here.
Commissioner Flowers?
Here.
Great. Next item is adoption and approval of agenda. Do any commissioners have any modifications to the agenda they'd like to make?
I'd like to ask one question about including the, we got a email for a dock at 67 Water Street. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised to see it didn't make it to the agenda because I had some constituents very concerned about certain questions on that. Is that something we could add now or would have to put on next month's agenda?
We could put it on next month's agenda. I actually have an update about that. I was at that PZB meeting.
Okay.
So I can speak to that later.
Okay, great.
Any other questions or comments about the agenda? Anyone? No? Okay. Great. So do we have a motion to approve as written?
I move we approve the agenda.
Second. There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Great. Public comment? No? Government representative comments?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Corey Sackford with the City of St. Augustine. Last week, we received an email from a constituent and a local boater who utilizes our waterways with a concern about sewage discharge into our local waterways. And our harbor master, Eric Malden, went ahead and did a memo and a fact sheet and submitted it to our city manager. And I wanted to share that with each of the commissioners here in the port because everyone in this room has the same goal and mission, is to protect our local waterways and stuff. And in this, it details several ideas of what was noticed, what we do, what the rules are for people who utilize the city's moorings and dock facilities, and it also details what the law enforcement agencies and the appropriate statutes. It also details how we have a pump out boat from that we purchased with the help from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and it also mentions a local entity that provides pump out services too, which Eric can speak to a little more, that he went ahead and took the initiative and works with that vendor to ensure that there are no excuses to pump out sewage in our local waterways. And I wanted to share that with you for possible dissemination outside of the group that went into, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Great. It was a
So Eric's going to talk
memo.
to us about it? Is Eric going to talk to us about?
Oh, he can, absolutely.
Is Eric about to talk to us about it, or should we
No,
ask?
we can work it together, yes.
Okay.
Any questions you may have.
Oh, okay. I was just, interested in.
Eric Malden, Harbor Master, City of St. Augustine.
Hey. Just that, what you did with Code Brown guy, what's up with that?
Chris is actually here behind us as well. He came to us, probably a few months back, about a secondary offload site for his boat. I think he currently uses some Comanche Cove, but our facility has a little faster pump out, and when theirs is down, he uses us as a secondary site. No charge, just allow him to come in, offload as he needs to. I looked at a cost analysis of whether we charge him for it or not, and it was very minimal. So I think the benefit factor of allowing him just to be able to offload his boat at the times that he needs.
So he can let his sewage off at the city dock now?
Yes. Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah, we've done that for a few months now. Yeah. I think probably, every couple of weeks, or how often you do it now?
Busy season now, so it's been once a week.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I'm hearing is that everybody's excited about Code Brown, but we need to get the price down As you know, the city's only $5. That's why I've often said maybe the city could go in with some kind of, as a commissioner of this port, I would be willing, I don't know if Code Brown is even interested, to design some kind of grant. But $40 is a lot of people, the smaller boats, you know what I'm saying? You've got a small tank, 20, 30 gallons, so you're pumping out at least once a week. And I know if they're in the city limits, you're still doing it for only $5, right? Even if they're not on a mooring ball.
Yeah, we're bound by our grant agreement to only.
So you're
charge.
still doing that if they're in the city limits.
But a majority of them, we do recommend Code Brown if we're not able to get to them and whatnot. So we share that effort.
But, well, you see the sewage in the water, the pictures of the
I don't
sewage.
see the sewage in the water, no, ma'am.
You don't see the sewage in the water? Because, you know, when I was at the city marina for about 4 months, I saw it every morning in the water.
Did you bring that to our attention?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there were some discussions that, you know, you can't force people to pump out, but
Yeah.
if the fine is so high, it would help.
Well, we keep the incentive where it's free 7 days a week at any time for somebody to pump out. There's pump out hydrants at every single slip. So there's no excuse for anybody.
No,
to
there
wait it.
isn't,
Or
and there isn't, and yet
there's
I saw
really
it.
no need for them to do that if it's that easily accessible. as
Eric,
well.
I can't explain it, but you had a trawler at the end of the dock that had 4 people living on it, and they were right next to the pump-out hose. And you know how nosy I am. They never pumped out a single time.
We do have upland facilities that if they don't
I
want to use their
understand that,
boat,
yeah.
they don't have
I
to,
understand.
nor even if
Well,
they're
you
here
know,
for time, they can
the
use
fourth
upland
person on
facility.
there wasn't using those landside facilities because it took 2 weeks for me to even notice she was there. So the idea that you're getting off to use it, we all know that that's not true.
We don't know that.
All right, well, I do because I've been on the water a long time and I see this, I've sent pictures, you guys have the pictures. This is a daily thing. And, you know, there are other port cities like Marathon, there's so much enforcement behind that you wouldn't dare. And there's an easy way to not have to bother our most favored customers is that their name is on that list of pump out. If you're on the list, and I can see, Chris, you keep a list on your boat? Or you have a thing, do you email people? You have a receipt of anybody that's pumped out? So I know when Chris comes to my boat, I pay online, I have the receipt, so if the police come up to me, we're checking heads, ooh. Here's the last, I have evidence of a pump
Provide
out.
pump out receipts upon request.
Right.
It's not our responsibility to keep those documents. It is
So
the boat
y'all don't
owners.
keep the list of people who
We
have
keep
pump.
some for the pump out boat for documenting for the state reporting for our grant, but it's not our responsibility to keep individual boat
Okay, so I
documentation.
thought that you
Per
had to
Florida
keep,
statute, it requires the boat owner to provide those documents only, not the site that offloads.
okay, but as far as keeping a list is really simple, right? I mean, just boat, Salem vessel, you know, Freedom, pumped out. It's just, so y'all still do that with the pump out boat though, right? You pump some.
Pump out boat, we keep
and
a
you
list
put the
because I
list.
have to report that sewage to DEP.
All right,
with the grant.
so, you know, if you're not, at let's just say all the boats that are not at.
Pump out, we do not.
Right. To make it long story short, I don't want to beat it into the ground because I've been beating it into the ground for 20 years, but we're not going to solve this problem without more law enforcement. And if we have those lists, whether it be Chris' list, the city, you know, law enforcement comes up, yes, sir, here's my pump out receipt. They don't have to bother that boat at all. But if they don't have it, they know what's going on. We're just not going to change this without more law enforcement on it. And I understand, I appreciate the city policies, I'm just saying it's not,
They do a great job enforcing that and doing their inspections on a routine basis. They're out there quite a bit.
how many inspections do we do? Right, I mean, how often do we do an
I
inspection?
can't speak for how
Okay.
often they do inspections.
Right, now if somebody comes up and says, you know, I think that boat over there is pumping out, is anything done to make sure that they're
We can
inspecting?
go and investigate that situation if we deem that there's further action as far as reporting at DEP for them to come down and start their own investigations. That will be done.
I just,
That's the first thing I suggest to anybody that has any issues or sees something with sewage being pumped out or any of that stuff is to report it directly to DEP. You can inform us, but the state handles it at their level and does their own independent
I find there's
investigation.
some kind of federal place that you can, a reaction center that would, you know, I'm sorry, but the state FDEP has not impressed me over these last several years. I mean, they haven't done anything with the complaints that I've sent to them, not a thing. So I understand the policy and I appreciate it, it's just not working. We will continue to have people swimming in sewage, getting it in their mouth, getting things like MRSA, as long as we're too lackadaisical and apathetic about enforcement.
So to be clear, fellas, you're saying the memo that you circulated, which was very good, is publicly shareable, and we should feel free to share it to constituents if they ask? Okay,
Including that FDEP reporting line.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Any other government representative comments? Looks like that's no. Secretary Treasurer's report.
The city police law enforcement overtime, we've had nothing for this is year to date, so this is starting October 1st, and we haven't had anything. The sheriff's department overtime, we've spent $6,391. The derelict boats to date for this fiscal year, we've spent $7,332. In the Florida State Board of Administration, we have $26,121. In South State, in our operating account, we have $637,073. And in our money market account, we have $1,325,000. The taxes budgeted were $930,766. The taxes received to date was $121,000. Now, here's the thing that's going on with the trip. What we budgeted for was the $900,000. Okay, that was based on 2 out of 3. There were 3 board members who voted, 1 an A, 2 for the higher rate. I got a letter. I just got a notice from Trim. They're going to put our funds on hold and put it in escrow. We'd have to have another budget hearing, just another budget hearing, voting, just to vote on that rate. Now, if we don't get 3 out of 4, as the higher rate, we have to give up that $900,000 and we have to go down to a lower rate. In the meantime, they're holding our funds in escrow. The other way to do this is we don't have to have a meeting. They will lower it themselves.
Right.
And take the lower amount. So that $900,000 will not be to be expected.
Right. So just to summarize, the problem was, at the time, we only had 3 sitting board members when we did our budget hearings.
Right.
Every year for our budget hearings, we have to vote on either maintaining last year's tax rate or dropping it to a rollback rate, right? This time around, we voted in favor of maintaining last year's tax rate, but there were only 2 yay votes and 1 nay vote. In order for the previous year's rate to be maintained, we would have had to have 3 yay votes because we are technically a 5-member body, even though there were 2 empty seats at the time. So they are saying either we can schedule a new round of budget hearings
And hope and see if we can get
To
3 out of 4.
to see if we can get a 3rd vote in favor of maintaining last year's rate, or we can just let it lapse and automatically revert to the rollback rate.
Which I have to change the budget anyway.
Right.
So I'm still going to have to do that. I don't think we need a meeting, but I do have an email that I just got from them. So I'm going to call Tallahassee and see if we, depending on what you guys want to do. Do you want to have another hearing, a 505 hearing, to vote again on this, which normally, it's probably going to be 2 and 2. It's still going to be back to the way it was unless we have so rather than waste anybody's time.
Well, so my question is, and this is related, has there been any update from the state about filling our vacant seat? Have we heard anything? Okay.
Now, I don't know if I'll hear it or the person who is vying for that seat will hear it first. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one.
Okay.
I have a question about that. Who exactly contacted you to tell us we did this incorrectly? Because if you remember, Elise, this has happened before in my last term, and I said we can't raise taxes with the vote of 2 people when only 3 showed up. So who actually said? Was it a department or somebody from a certain state?
Tallahassee, the
Okay,
trim
but
department.
department of who? The,
It's trim. It's your tax, it's
Okay,
the tax
but-
department.
Yeah, it's the Department of Revenue.
Department of Revenue,
Florida
okay.
Department of
And so is there a certain letter from a certain somebody that came to
Yes,
you?
I have it on my email that I have to go and respond to.
Okay, would you send me a copy of that letter?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So in the meantime, we're probably not going to get any more revenue until this is resolved.
Is there a time frame for when they will?
Give me one.
Okay. Yeah, could you forward that correspondence to all of us?
Yes.
Great. All right, well, any other questions on the Secretary Treasurer's report?
Well, your question was, do we want to have another meeting?
Well, no, I was just saying that if you guys have to decide.
Right.
The commissioners.
So did we decide to have another meeting?
I
or just
personally
let-
would be in favor of all of us reading whatever this correspondence is, so we can
Yes.
figure out exactly what the situation is, and then we can add that as a voting item for the next,
That sounds good.
the next agenda.
Okay.
That way we can make a truly informed decision. Good. Next up is approval of minutes. Any modifications to the minutes as written? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second. There's second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No engineering report. That brings us to old business, channel marker proposal. If we recall, Taylor put out bids for channel marker repair for several channel markers that were damaged in Salt Run. This was back in November. They got one bid back from Hayward Construction for, I believe, $11,200. We are meant to vote on that proposal. Is there any discussion on that?
Which marker number is that? Do we
Oh,
know?
boy, I don't recall. It was multiple marker numbers. Eric, do you know off the top of your head?
Number 2 and 13.
Definitely 13. That's,
And number 2 right at the entrance.
okay.
So we would get number 2 and 13 for 11 something? Mm-hmm. That's pretty good, pretty good. That's good.
Comparable to what our
That's a good price, yeah.
Yeah.
We were paying a lot more than that a few years ago. Great.
Yeah, we've paid as much as $7,000 or $8,000 for an individual marker before, so
For number 3, the last one was, it was 9,500, so that's a good price.
I'd be inclined to jump on this too. Any pushback on that, or do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion. Second?
I'll make a second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. That brings us to,
With just a follow-up on that, we also had approved for the city of St. Augustine to purchase I'll call it the temporary buoys. Mm-hmm. And I believe they have purchased those.
I have not seen their.
Okay, I saw something in some of the treasurer's information that rail-in buoys for $1,429.56.
Did you get the money?
No, Commissioner Wayne was ordering those for the port and shipping them to the marina for us to store and deploy as needed.
So we need to know what the status of that is. They might not have been ordered.
I can't, that was
Okay.
Because we had
Yeah,
previous discussions where we talked about 4,000.
I'll call Chris about that just to see what's,
So Eric, that would be when we have the marker down, y'all can go out there and anchor something in its place? Oh, that'd be nice, that'd be nice. That'd be great.
that's a good catch, Nick. I'll call Chris and figure out what the status of that is. If on
I think
temporary.
we left it that the city of St. Augustine was going to make the purchase, and we were going to reimburse them.
Yeah, Chris was going to make it and get reimbursed for it.
house it, store it, deploy it.
Right. So we'll get to the bottom of that. Good. Next up is election of officers. Does anybody have any nominations for officers?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate you, Matt Brown, for chairman.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Any other
I kind of
discussion?
like the way the county does it, and they have the new people do it. Mr. Bender, you don't want to give it a swing?
No, I defer to Mr. Brown. He's been doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Good. So any other nominations there then? No? All in favor? Aye. Appreciate it. Next will be vice chair.
All against, that would be a no vote from me for the record, please. Thank
Right,
you.
there we go. And a vice chair nominations.
I nominate Tom Rivers.
I agree with that. Any other nominations? No? All in favor? Aye.
And that'd be a no for me,
All right.
Mr. Secretary.
There's no to both for Sandy, aye on all those. Well, thank you very much, everyone. That's great. We have one more public comment period. No public comment. Comments by commissioners. Tom, anything there?
Yeah, there is something I'd like to talk about. I was asked to be one of the judges at the Regatta of Lights, and unfortunately, I had a conflict with my schedule, and I asked Nicholas, I didn't ask him, I asked Elise to see if, if he could replace me, and he did. So I'd like to hear how it went, Nicholas.
I've been living here for 20 years, and I've probably been to about 10 of those light parades, and I always enjoyed the experience because I would go from the light parade directly up to the fort and take the grandkids into the fort afterwards. This was a different experience because you're sitting under a tent out of the rain, which we had for a good half hour, 45 minutes, and I enjoyed the experience. I think it was well run. I think the Yacht Club should encourage the TDC to increase their donation next year. We increased it this year. I don't think we should increase it every year. So I think the Yacht Club should look at the TDC for that, and also to the Historic City, who also contributed. But it was a good experience, great participation. Somewhere around 37 boats participated, and the rain stopped before the boats started circulating.
I have something to add to the Regatta of Lights. What we donated to them or what we gave them for a contribution, that wasn't the total. The total was another 500 and plus more because we got a bill for overtime for the regatta.
How much total are we giving them now what's the total amount that we're
Well,
donating?
we gave them,
5,000.
No. Oh, it's not listed here. There's a line item, but it's empty.
I think it was five, yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
I think it was five, not quite, I don't think it was five.
Their summary
I
sheet.
think it was 5.5. I thought it was in the 5.5, 6
Yeah,
range.
okay.
But you're saying that we gave them a certain amount, but then there's also additional costs associated because we get billed by the city for police overtime.
But I don't
Right,
think we-
something to keep in mind.
We agreed when you give the Regatta of Lights, you take that into consideration that we're also paying for the overtime.
Right, because I thought they were supposed to foot the
They
bill for
were,
overtime, and they had been saying they would.
Last year.
Well, don't we already have
interesting.
a collection of a pot for overtime law enforcement?
Yes, we do.
It couldn't just come out of that, because that's not much money,
No, it's $500, but I just want to be clear that
what they're actually
what
spending.
they're asking for is not just what
Right.
they're asking for.
Their summary of main sponsors, and they gave that to all of the judges.
I think Chris Bassetti would have.
The main sponsors was 5,000 from the port, 2,500 from the St. John's Tourist Development Council, and 1,000 from the Florida
this is-
Inland Navigation District.
Mr. Passetti?
Chris Passetti, St. Augustine Fire Department. So that may be on my side of it. I can get with Miss Vicky and see if that came from us, because normally when we have things on the water that are forecasted
Right,
out,
that it has-
we submit that under some of that overtime. So if that's something you do not want done in the future, we can make sure that.
Well, I mean, I think in the future, we just need to nail down who is actually taking responsibility for it, because I know we have been told in the past, when we have gotten applications from the Yacht Club, one of their budget line items is paying for law enforcement and first responder overtime. But then if it turns out they're not paying for it, and we're kind of getting double billed, I guess is what
Okay, so-
what that boils down to. So
Yeah, so our side's a little different, like the law enforcement has a separate side where they can bill for special events where we do not. We don't really have
Okay.
that mechanism, so that's something we can figure out in the future moving forward, or just not use that.
okay, I mean, like Commissioner Sanders Flower said, it's not a lot of money, so this is not budget breaking or.
Make sure we
But
solve
yeah,
the
it would be
issues if there was any.
it would be good if it was perfectly clear going
I can
forward.
take it to her if you like.
Great, Commissioner Bender, any other comments?
Yeah, on any construction activities that we're doing and we're sharing costs, with whether it's the City of St. Augustine, the Florida Inland Navigation District, please remember to have port recognition on any of the construction signs.
That's very important, actually.
Being at the yacht club Saturday night, I looked at the pier that was there, and it may have been an old sign, not a new sign, but the old sign at least showed Florida Inland Navigation, City of St. Augustine, but nothing with the port. So that may have been old construction sign. I'm not sure it was a new construction sign, but it's important for the port to have the recognition so people know we're in existence. Also, I know when we participated in the dedication at the Harbor Master Park this past summer, they did have Port Authority on that, so that was fine in that situation.
Right. Good. That's a good point. Commissioner Flowers?
Just in the same vein of speaking about the boat parade, if you look to the north and south of us, they have Jacksonville and Palm Coast have some spectacular boat parades, and it's not that ours isn't great, but the difference is they have a huge cash payout. They have a big prize at the end of theirs that we don't have. So I would be inclined to give them more money, especially if they would start offering some kind of winnings. I think that a lot of the people who make the trip to Palm Coast or Jacksonville come here instead. So we're the only one that you do a lot of work on your boat, and it's great for us, but you don't win anything. So if that would help the club out, offer some kind of prize, I would be into that.
Got
If it
it.
really increase, the number of boats.
I believe all they give out is trophies.
Trophies.
Yeah.
I think they won
Little
$5
glass
grand or
trophy.
something down in Palm
It's
Coast.
more of a prestigious thing than a
Right.
financial thing.
Right.
One
Yeah, I think it's $5 grand down in Palm Coast. It's quite a sight.
It's pretty good.
Let me say one more thing. Let's go back a few years, Elise, and you can help me on this. But we paid, considering the pump outs, we paid a private vendor to go out and do this. I don't remember how much we paid. It was about $5,000 or so.
It was over $20,000, Tom, that we paid to Conch House.
No, this
I
is something
got the
different.
receipt, okay.
This is before you came on, Sandy. We
Yeah, I just
actually
had 'em
paid
paid
somebody to do this, and he just went out on his own and go from boat to boat to try to make sure everybody got pumped out. So that was in our budget at that time. Do you remember?
I remember, I just don't, going back, because that was a while ago.
It was quite a
At least
while
you
ago.
gave me receipts for that from the Conch House for a little over $20,000 that they charged to port.
Is that before you got on?
Yeah, but it happened before I was a commissioner, but I was on my boat when they were doing this, so I was there receiving the service. I saw that they stopped after coming around to the city on two trips. They stopped coming around, but they still got the full $20,000. But again, the complaint from the guy running that pump out was nobody wants to do it. You're never, ever going to get people who don't want to pump out to do it without an impetus. And a lot of people, and this is not just sailboats, it's not just small boats. You could be a $3 million boat, and if they don't want to hold their sewage, they're not going to do it. But it's a $500 penalty. And you can go back every day until you get them in compliance.
Right.
I have one other thing. I had the pleasure of attending the promotion of Sergeant Aaron Braddock last week.
Braddock, right.
And it was a nice promotion. 6 officers moved to sergeant, 2 moved to lieutenant, and it was a real nice setup.
So he is Lieutenant Braddock now?
No, he's a sergeant.
Oh, he is now Sergeant Braddock. Okay, I see.
No, 6
Great.
went to sergeant, 2 went to a lieutenant.
Great.
I really wanted to
Good.
make that.
So Commissioner Flowers raised a dock proposal that has been floated, no pun intended, on a house off Water Street in downtown. I was at the PZB meeting at which this was discussed. It is, I will say, in my opinion, a horrible idea. The design of the dock juts way out into the channel at an extremely narrow part of that little skinny bit of Hospital Creek that runs immediately parallel to Water Street, kind of right where it bends too, so that especially at low tide, it will be completely impassable. You'll be pleased to hear that the PZB was also extremely skeptical about this and demanded a complete revision of the plans. I don't imagine it's going to be built the way that they want to build it, and for good reason, especially because their stated intention for this dock was only to be able to launch kayaks. They don't even need a dock for that. The way the current structure on the property works, there's stairs that they could just walk right down to the water's edge. So putting a big floating dock structure out there that's going to block the waterway is foolish, but I think the St. Augustine Planning and Zoning Board agreed based on the way that meeting went. But if constituents are complaining about it, it's PZB that has the authority to do anything about it. It is still in their court right now. So it would be worth directing their complaints to PZB, who...
Actually, we're the regulatory authority over the waterways.
We don't have a regulatory authority to approve or disapprove
That's not what our
building.
charter says in Section 3, B and C, both docks and waterways. That's why they send this stuff to us, because they expect us to issue the permit. So I just want to make it very clear, whether you choose to do it or not, that we are the regulatory authority, we're the governing regulatory authority over the district. And whether it be docks, waterways, dredging, we're supposed to approve that. I know we've tolerated dredging in our district without saying anything, but it's supposed to come here for a permit, whether that be the government or private individual. So I just want to put that on the record, that is our charter. But that's why they come to us. We're supposed to vote on permitting that dock. But along the same lines, I do agree with you that I think it could be redone, because you got to realize that up that little section of the creek, there's another 4 or 5 houses up there, and they only have access to the deep water 2 hours before and after high tide already. So to put that there is extremely a extreme nuisance for those particular 4 or 5 homeowners, that's the only way they can get out to deep water too. But I would hope that it could be redesigned. But in my opinion, in the opinions that I have garnered legally, we're a regulatory authority and we need to vote on approving a permit for that or not.
Could you share those opinions, please?
I'll have to check, but I'm sure that I could do that. I have to check and make sure that that person is okay with me sharing their name.
Great, thank you. Any other commissioner comments? No? Well, there being no other business, our next... Oh, sorry, here we go.
It was kind of, got my wheels turning about the overtime for the
Regatta Blights, right.
Richmond Show, St. Louis County Sheriff's Office, by the way. Yes, it is certainly a line item for them that has been historically in place. However, when they're presented with what a private entity would pay for just sheriff's office law enforcement involvement, they balked at it, of course. So that breaks down simply to it's around $280 an hour for the boat to be on scene. That's the FEMA rate. That's established by them. And then that would be 2 boats. So then you're paying the sheriff's office off-duty rate of $75 an hour per law enforcement officer on those vessels. And that's going to be depending on the size of the vessel that we bring. One of them is a 3-man crew, one of them is a 2-man crew. Roughly comes out $3,500 would be just for 2 boats. That doesn't include City of St. Augustine, doesn't include FWC, doesn't include fire and rescue and all the other entities that were on scene. So the 500 in overtime is certainly a more appealing number. While it does come from this overtime supply that we have here, they look at the number that they would have to pay, and then they look at the number that that you awesome folks are willing to pay.
Right,
And
the rate that we enjoy.
Guess
I
which
see.
way they lean.
That makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where that kind of comes from.
That's some good context. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, in that case, I believe our next meeting will be January 21st, 2025. In the meantime, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, have a great New Year. This meeting is adjourned.